Is too. Today is May the 18th, 2019. Welcome, everybody. On behalf of the Board of Education, we are glad you took the time out of your day, this beautiful day that we as the community of Rochester have had. Absolutely gorgeous. We hope you certainly had the opportunity to get out there and enjoy some of the weather, even if it was for work or with family. It was indeed a beautiful, blessed day in terms of weather. And again, on behalf of the board, we hope you had an opportunity to enjoy that, but we're very glad that you've chosen to spend your early evening with us. We hope it won't be a late evening. Our bylaws require that we sort of take attendance. If a board member says that he or she is not available, he or she has to offer that reason to the presiding officer, which in this case is myself. And there is one board member who unfortunately can't be with us tonight. She is not able to be with us. It relates to health-related reasons. And as our bylaws require, I am required as the presiding officer in this meeting to make an assessment as to whether that's a legitimate reason or not. Now, I got to tell you, and I don't think I have to tell you this, but if someone is not feeling well, that is a legitimate reason not to be at a meeting. And I think we could pretty much agree to that, but our bylaws require that I assess the reason for the absence, and I have done that. And then our bylaws require that I ask my colleagues, all 6 of us that remain in this meeting tonight, whether anyone has any objection to Vice President Elliott's explanation for not being here today, which again, she communicated to me that she was not feeling well, and I accept that reason for her not being here today, but it's not a matter of just what I accept or don't accept. The board has to have an opportunity to assess that explanation. Is there any objection to my having accepted Vice President Elliott's explanation that she is not available to come tonight because she is not feeling? I'm looking through my participant list just to make sure I don't miss anybody raising their hand. I don't see anybody raising their hand. So her absence is recorded as excused, and we'll continue on with our meeting. For all those out there watching and maybe not feeling well themselves, on behalf of the board, I say to you, get better. There's a lot of things going on in our community. Many of us have experienced how our health can be impacted by the pandemic and assortment of other issues that seem to plague us as our families. And on behalf of the board, let me say you have our prayers and our good thoughts. But in the meantime, the law does require that we take care of business, and we have a lot of business to take care of tonight. We have a special meeting, which includes a number of topics, which we hope to get through pretty quickly because we've already discussed them previously. Commissioner Powell will lead us through those discussions. And then, of course, our superintendent has some resolutions, brief resolutions that relate to our calendar that she will review with us. And then I will literally or figuratively, symbolically hand the gavel over to Commissioner LeBron, and she will chair our finance meeting. I should also mention, and I neglect to mention, during our special meeting, we'll get some audit reports that the board is interested in seeing. So without further ado, let's get busy here. I am told that we have, where we normally have speakers and people who've made written submissions, there are none tonight. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct, President White.
All right, so that means we can go on to the next portion of our agenda, and that is going to be managed by our Auditor General, Anissa Henry Wheeler. She's going to introduce 2 sets of audit reports, which the board is going to be interested in hearing. Auditor General Anissa Henry Wheeler, why don't you go ahead and lead us through this discussion?
Thank you. At the board's request, we have periodic presentations from Rocky Smith, which is the board's claims auditor. And tonight is one of those such days. And so tonight we do have 2 representatives from Rocky Smith, our claims auditors, to present to you the April report as well as the 2 prior months.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone, commissioners and those in attendance. Tonight we have our April claims audit report for you. and that report is in front of you. The second page of the report, which indicates our claims that we've audited for the month of April, 1,717. For this period, approximately $56 million worth of district funds. And we've made inquiries into 305, or a little over $11 million. Total outstanding inquiries tonight are 44, approximately $47,000. So, that is broken down below in the table by software of which we audit these claims in: PeopleSoft Concur Invoice, Concur Expenses, as well as the district's P-card transaction. If there are no immediate questions on this table, to give you more of a general summary, if we scroll to page 10. Keep going. Page 10 will kind of have a summary of how the district has been doing over the past few months with us. So 2 more pages up, I think. There we go. All right. So just in general, we've provided monthly reports since our start with the district in July, and we've audited each month and provided a report. And just some highlights that I'll go through. The percentage of claims with inquiries has been down since we started reviewing the district's claims. It was almost at 25% for the month. We're well below 20 on a regular basis from month to month now. So that is definitely good to note, which can be seen in the totals here. All right. Also to note is the percentage of outstanding inquiries at month end. So this is definitely the work of the accounts payable and purchasing departments, and following up with not only vendors, but district-wide, those individuals that are submitting these claims for payment, definitely in getting us the supporting documentation that we need to approve those claims on behalf of the board, as well as making that timely so that there are no outstanding inquiries at month end. And as you can see and probably remember from our start, is we had tons of inquiries that were outstanding at month end, and we're now consistently below 50, and some months after 1 or 2 months of follow-up, we are down to 1 or 2, which is a great accomplishment by the district as a whole. Are there any questions pertaining to the claims audit report for the month of April?
Just to give you a heads up of what to expect in the next couple of months, you'll always receive the monthly reports, but sometime in July, you will also receive a year-end report. So we'll have a comprehensive year-end report for your management team, which would be helpful for them as well for their analytical purposes, and also to provide the board with an overview of the prior 12-month period. So you can look forward to that probably in the late July time period, early August. So it's been a pretty amazing time period to think that we're closing out the year, and we met everybody about a year ago, and it's been a nice a nice year for us to get to know everyone and to work closely with the district. And it's been a very positive relationship with the management team and our team. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask at any point in time, or certainly funnel them to us, directly or through Anissa's office.
Anissa, I too want to note that from my vantage point, it's been a very positive experience. We had some really committed internal staff people here for many, 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 many years. And without casting any aspersions on their commitment and the excellence that they strive for, I really do find that this was a good move made by the Board of Education. It took many years for us to get to this point because our staff was so committed and we felt committed to them. But I think in the end, this is a very positive move, and I want to thank Naraki Smith on behalf of the board for making it such a positive experience and improving our ability to act as reasonable and effective fiduciary agents for the district. So on behalf of the board, thank you for what, again, it has been for us, I think, a positive experience.
Thank you too. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Aaron and Rich. So if we would like to move right on, since I did promise you the full complement of auditors for the night. Next up, we have Freed Maxick, the board's external auditor. It's about that time again where we are preparing for our financial audit for the year ending June 30, 2021. And as a requirement for that audit, we are required to go through the audit plan with our auditors and make sure the board is aware of what the plan is for the financial audit. I am scheduled to have an audit committee next week, but there was a conflict. So tonight, Catherine Barrett is here with us to walk through the audit plan because the work for the audit is going to start in early June. And I wanted to make sure that the board is aware of what the plan is. Kathy?
Thank you very much, Anissa. Yes, we're here to present the audit plan. If you move, I think it's the fourth slide, talks about our engagement team. I'm happy to say that we've been able to maintain fairly consistent audit team. There was no change in this audit team at all this year. We have a good group of people. The people listed here are the senior management people responsible for the audit. So those are supervisor and above that are most familiar with the district operations. But we do employ various staff members, and we rotate those people in on an annual basis. So you get kind of the best of both worlds. You have a management team that know and understand the district operations, know the people, but the people that are looking at the detail of the transactions that we expect to maintain professional skepticism, we do rotate in on a regular basis. So we have a good complement of each of those in your audit plan. The next slide talks about our understanding of your needs and expectations, maintaining consistency because it is more efficient for the district if they can they have go-to people that are familiar with their issues and the problems, and we've been able to maintain that. Avoid surprises, and that goes two ways. We want to make sure that we keep you fully informed of accounting pronouncements, new industry developments that will impact you. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we're going into the audit with a plan that we understand what happened within the district that impacts your finances, that would impact our audit, so we can develop an audit plan around those conditions. And we've had conversations with Anissa, with Carrie couples, and got a good understanding of what we can expect this year that led us to the plan that you have in front of you. Upfront planning coordination, again, that starts with an audit plan that we intend to follow going into the audit. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think that we've ever had a situation where the audit itself was not properly planned because we did not have adequate or thorough information from the district. Even the unfortunate year where you overspent your budget, the audit plan was still a good plan, just the financial results were inconsistent with the expectations. And lastly, timely resolution of any issues that exist. If something's going to be delayed, if we have trouble getting information, we know that we have open communication with the district, and the same goes for us. If they have an issue with how the audit's being conducted, they feel free to contact us to resolve the issue in a timely manner. The next page talks about our reporting timetable. And It has shifted a little bit. You've had a lot of changeover in your audit department or your accounting and finance department. So we have pushed the audit back slightly, but we do, even with that, we think that we are fully capable of meeting the timelines of the finance department to get you a draft of the audit, or draft of the CAFR that Friday before Thanksgiving, which is our general time frame. You know, we're committed to getting the city the information that they request because your financial statements do roll up into theirs. So even with a pushback of the date, we should be able to meet these deadlines. Next page talks about the audit objectives. And really the audit, the whole purpose of the audit is to provide you with an opinion letter and hopefully provide you with information that will allow you to evaluate the information that you already receive from the district on a regular basis, so that you feel comfortable that the information that you are getting is adequate, accurate information that you can use to make decisions in a timely manner. We've really had very few, if any, audit adjustments in a number of years. So I think that in itself lends credibility to the information that you receive on a regular basis. For the audit committee, you have a fiscal responsibility to oversee the audit, you know, making sure that this plan is adequate, and review of the financial statements at the end of the audit, and taking responsibility for those. And for management to make sure that we are available if any questions arise, if you have any questions on accounting issues, that we're here and available to you. The next couple pages talk about some developments within your organization and in the industry. You know, I think that you're probably pretty familiar with the new aids flow that you are getting under some of the recovery acts. Also listed is a number of new accounting pronouncements. We've already worked with the district, consulted with them on implementation of FASB 84 this year, which has to do with fiduciary activities, and a change of how that information is presented on your financial statements. Is there a question? Okay, I thought somebody was trying to break in. The next one that is likely to have an impact on you is FASB 87. We've been talking about that for the last couple of years. That has to do with leases. Those are the two big ones that are most likely to have an impact on you. The others are there really for your information. And the rest of the audit plan, you know, is really fairly consistent with what it has been the prior years. You know, we developed a good audit plan last year. We were able to follow that plan with no changes to it. And in talking with Anissa and Carrie about what happened during the year as far as that has a financial impact on you, there was really nothing that we saw in those discussions, or that we heard in those discussions, that led us to change the audit plan. It was a successful audit plan last year, and we don't reinvent the wheel just for the fun of it. So the plan is fairly stable from what it was last year. Really, the rest of the document is available to you, and really talks about our response to each risk area within the audit. We talk about risk area, we talk about general risk, not anything that's specific to Rochester School District. It's really built on a audit risk that is within the industry, and then how we audit around those risks. Any questions on the audit plan?
Dan, you're muted.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking at my list. I don't see anybody raising their hand, so.
I also have some good news. We received the final information that we needed to release the single audit from last year. So that should be coming to you very shortly. And we talked about that at your last meeting.
That concludes the two auditors that we have here. Again, my report will be on next Tuesday, the 25th, in the audit committee meeting. But I did want to make sure that these two items did happen for you guys this evening. Have a good evening. Thanks so much, Kathy.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate you. Anissa, is there anything else? You're muted.
I was just getting ready to step out. That's it for audit related information. So that is it for what you needed as far as time necessary information to move forward and get started.
Thank you for arranging that presentation, and thank you for staying within the time allotted to you.
You were on a mission.
We all appreciate that, truly. All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Powell, in that same spirit of moving along, but moving along effectively and efficiently, what do you got for us in terms of policy readings?
Rahima's bringing it up now. Rahima, remind me, this is our final reading on drug-free workplace?
This is the second reading for drug-free policy workplace.
Sorry, the second readings are coming up first. Okay. So this is state required. This change is required by changes to the state law. We've reviewed it before. Only ask if there are any questions, comments, observations.
Commissioner Powell, will you make sure you look at the list?
On the participants list, I see no hands.
Thank you very much.
So this being a second reading, we will be acting on this at our business meeting this month. Is that right, Rahima?
Yes, on May 27th is the business.
Okay, so the next policy. These are all, again, you've seen these before. They are the work product from the subgroups that you've seen the PowerPoint presentation that shows our process. It starts out in a subcommittee work group. The results of that work go to, in this case, it went to CPAC and to Cabinet. Comments came back to the subgroup, were reviewed again, integrated where appropriate, and then voted upon by the committee. They left the committee last month, and they've already had the first reading. And I could go through each one as I did last time and just ask if there are questions. Policy 4200, special education district policy, district plan policy rather. I'll give folks a minute for hands to go up. Seeing none, policy 4201, parent involvement of parents of children with disabilities. Seeing no hands, policy 4203, preschool special education program. Seeing no hands, policy 4204, allocation of space for special education programs. Seeing no hands, policy 4207, appointment and training of CSE members. Seeing no hands, policy 4208, appointment and training of CPSC members. Seeing no hands, policy 4209, development and provisions of student individualized education program. Seeing no hands, policy 4210, implementation of IEPs. Seeing no hands, policy 4211, least restrictive environment. Seeing no hands, policy 4212, grouping by similarity of needs. Seeing no hands, policy 4213, extended school year services. Seeing no hands, policy 4214, declassification of students with disabilities. Seeing no hands, policy 4215, transition services. And I see no hands. All right, that counts as a second reading of our special ed policies group, or parts 1 and 2. That concludes the policy committee's update.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. And thank you for staffing or looking at our participant list. Saved a lot of trouble. Those for the folks sort of watching and trying to figure out what Commissioner Powell and her colleagues were doing is we're following our bylaws. They require a number of readings so that board members can comment in advance of the final vote. So that's what that is all about. And I'm sure you heard her say that at the next business meeting, we'll be voting officially, but the whole reading is part of making sure board members have had a chance to properly vet and consider and review all these resolutions before they come up for final vote. So again, thank you, Commissioner Powell, and thank you, Rahima, for your diligence in getting us through this. I got to tell you that once again, we had some good folks doing your job. Matter of fact, I recall one of them specifically, Deborah Flanagan. She did a great job. And I wondered, gosh, how are we going to get somebody to fill Deborah's shoes? Well, you have a different pair of shoes, but you have done an excellent job in supporting policy. I see Commissioner Powell smiling. She worked with Deborah Flanagan and with yourself. So for her to be acknowledging that is quite something. And so Rahima, thank you for your good work. You have really upped our game in terms of staying on top of our policies, and the whole board. I know especially Commissioner Powell appreciates your work.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is our superintendent asked that the board consider some resolutions. These resolutions are being brought before you because our superintendent approached in a officers meeting, Vice President Elliott and myself, about some changes that she wanted to see with respect to the district's calendar. Superintendent Leslie, please inform the members of the board what your thinking is here.
Thank you. Good evening, President White. Good evening, commissioners, and to all of our staff and those watching on both YouTube and on Facebook. I have 3 recommendations that I'm making. I'm at three resolutions I'm asking for the Board of Education to consider. I'm sorry, is it 3 or is it? Yes, it's 3. And this is changes to both.
Superintendent, it's only 2. The one is for this year and one is for next year.
Oh, great. So you lump them together. Okay,
Yes.
That's right. I forgot about that. Thank you. So 3 resolutions. 1 impacts the calendar for this year, the 2020-21 school year, and the other 2 in the next resolution affect next school year. For this school year, I am asking for the Board of Education to consider taking Friday, June 18th, 2021 as a holiday for Juneteenth. We know that Governor Cuomo last year made June 19th an official state holiday. And just for those who don't know, Juneteenth recognizes when a group of enslaved people in Galveston, Texas discovered that they were actually free almost 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was passed. This year, the holiday does fall on a Saturday, which means we don't have to take the day off, but I'm asking for the board to consider it given the following 3, I feel, very compelling reasons. 1, 50% of our student population consists of African and African American or Black students of descent. We've had no missed days of instruction due to inclement weather or snow days. We were able to pivot to remote instruction, and we have an equity and educational excellence policy, which in part states that our students deserve respectful learning environments in which their racial and ethnic diversity is valued and contributes to successful academic outcomes. And should you vote favorably on this resolution, we will also provide academic resources, events, and activities for families, students, and staff. The next calendar consideration I'm asking is for Monday, October 11th, be renamed from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day / Columbus Day. We know that nationally, statewide, and locally, not only Indigenous individuals, but scholars and activists have called for this holiday to be renamed, as it overlooks the mistreatment of Native Americans and Indigenous people. I am using the following reasoning for this request. Certainly there are many school districts in the state and in the country, but most recently, New York City public schools made the shift to change the name from Columbus Day to Italian Heritage Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. The Ithaca City School District in 2017, through their Common Council in the city of Ithaca, made the decision to rename the day just solely to Indigenous Peoples Day. And certainly, again, it uplifts the educational and equity excellence policy, which I stated earlier. The third calendar consideration I'm asking is for Wednesday, November 24th, 2021, as a recess day, which is the day before Thanksgiving. The Rochester City School District typically has had this day marked as a recess day, but with Juneteenth next year being included in the calendar as an observed holiday, the decision was made to have that day be an instructional day. However, we received guidance from the New York State Department of Education prior to being able to continue to pivot during a weather or inclement weather day. We can pivot to remote instruction, so we do not have to have a school closure. So based on that guidance, I am comfortable with requesting the day to be renamed a recess day. The following factors were taken into consideration for this request to each of you. Certainly, we do have some concern relative to high student and staff absenteeism on that day. And again, the guidance was issued on May 12th, which was just a few days ago, relative to the usage of should we have snow days, and we know that the likelihood is pretty high. So those are the three requests that I am making, and it is my hope that the board will consider and vote favorably on all three. I'm available for any questions, and so is my team.
I just want to make sure before we go to questions, I just want to make sure that I have the resolution numbers correct. Is it 795 and 796? Is that right, Madam Clerk?
794 and
794 and 796?
794 and 795.
Oh, why did I see 796? Was that a
794, 795.
794, 795? Okay, gotcha. All right, I do see some hand raised. I'll begin with the list, and it has Commissioner Powell first.
Thank you. On the question of June 18th, I can recall there was some conversation about the state making it a state holiday. And my concern is not this year, because I think they canceled Regencies for that day, but going forward, can we expect that the state will have Juneteenth as an official holiday every year and avoid that date for Regents testing going forward?
It is, Commissioner Powell. Yes, we've already incorporated into our calendar for the 21-22 school year. Yes.
This is-
President White?
this
I'm
is
so
Bridget.
sorry, Commissioner Powell. I just want to ask if you want to do the motion so you can do the questions.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
thank you very much. Sorry about that. All right, so we'll take them as a bulk, 794 and 795. Is there a motion to put those two resolutions up for discussion? Commissioner
move.
Powell? I'll take the motion from you, and who seconded it?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Hey, I apologize for that, Commissioner Powell and Superintendent, continue your dialogue.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for, this is a bridge then. This is, this year just bridges us into the permanent solution.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, I see Commissioner Adams.
Yes, I would like to say that I had three community/staff members ask me about the Juneteenth thing. And I just want to thank you because I didn't even have to say anything to you. So I don't want nobody to think that I was listening. I didn't have to come to you. You presented this and I appreciate it. I just appreciated you taking the lead on this, Dr. Myers. And in reference to the other, it's the Columbus Day resolution. It's a step in the right direction, even though I would prefer that the Columbus Day be completely out of there. And that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to let people know that this ain't no response from them emailing me about this stuff. You took the lead on this. You were listening. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Malloy, I'm sorry, Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. Dr. Myers, I just wanted to say thank you for moving these changes forward. This is a great example for other school districts, and I sincerely hope that they will follow suit. Thank you.
Don't see any other hands being raised. So again, we're having resolution 794 and 795 up for discussion. I'll take one more quick look at the participant list. I don't see anybody raising a hand. So if you'll leave your monitors on and verbally indicate your position on this, I'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of resolution 794 and 795 indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seems, Madam Superintendent, the ayes have it. Your two resolutions have passed.
Thank you.
All right. Before I pass the baton to the gavel, I should say, this isn't a track meet. Before I pass the gavel to Commissioner LeBron, I want to thank Commissioner Adams. He just spent a moment graciously making it clear that the initiative was taken by the superintendent. And I think it's really important that we, I'm not exactly sure what his motives were, but I think what he was trying to do is make sure people understand that their superintendent was on top of things. And everything doesn't have to necessarily come by somebody telling a board member to tell a superintendent. So I really appreciate him doing that. And I try to operate in that fashion too. I could just say, I want to talk about Charlie Price, who it was a remarkable public servant. But I want to be honest, as much as I and others have benefited from his service, I want to be honest that the reason why I'm bringing it up right now is because Commissioner Adams reminded me that we should have, he didn't even say it like this, but I should have done it at the very beginning of the meeting. So I want to thank Commissioner Adams. It's not that I don't appreciate, because everybody here knows the importance of Mr. Price, but I want to thank Commissioner Adams for reminding me of this important moment, because this is a moment that should not go unaddressed by the board. That is the passing of Charlie Price. Many of you know he joined the Rochester Police Department in 1947 when there were no African Americans, men or women, on the police force. He stayed on that police force until 1985, and apparently, because of his skill and his ability, moved up through the ranks from detective to captain. I did not get to the DA's office until 1989. He had retired, But like most of you, so I did not have the opportunity to work with him directly as the DA's office. But like most of you, Mr. Price was a huge presence in our community. You didn't have to see him on the streets in uniform to know who he was, because he continued his legacy of service throughout his lifetime here in Rochester. And that's how most of us knew the importance of this great man and this great public servant. People of all colors, from all backgrounds, would do well to emulate and follow this man's lead. And so thank you, Commissioner Adams, for reminding me to remind everybody the importance of this remarkable public servant. And one of the ways that I would like to further the board's recognition of this role model is next board meeting. I'm not sure if our clerk will be around, but I'm sure we have able staff members that can do it. I would like for our staff members to draft a resolution recognizing the contributions of Charlie Price to our community, so that we could present that at an appropriate time to his family. So Madam Clerk, if you will do that, or have someone who's one of your colleagues do that at a meeting in the very near future, the board will have an opportunity to consider that resolution. And it is my hope and my belief that we will pass that resolution. It is the very least we could do as a Board of Education to recognize the contributions of this remarkable public servant. So thank you, Commissioner Adams, for reminding me to do that. I probably would have lost, at a personal level, I would have lost a lot of sleep having forgotten to do that. So thank you. And I thank my colleagues for giving me the opportunity to express that on their behalf as board president. Okay. Now we're going to turn the gavel over to Commissioner LeBron to take us through our hefty Finance Committee agenda. Commissioner LeBron?
Yep, just as a reminder, we're 25 minutes behind, actually 30 minutes behind schedule. We were scheduled to start at 5:55 p.m. So I do want to apologize to the community who also had to wait because we also started our meeting late. So we are going to do things a little bit different tonight in finance. Just so you all know, Chief Vandewater is going to be presenting the Power School upgrade to both the board and the community. I do need to review and accept the minutes from the April 20th. So if I can actually do that now, if I can get a motion so we can get that off the agenda.
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Colliers, you got it? Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Followed by our CFO, Ms. Pierce, is going to be doing the financial report and trend analysis for the April 2021, the third quarter student activity funds and elementary activity accounts report. Then we're going to go over the state monitor's fiscal plan, similar to what we did in ESA for the academic plan. Also ask administration to give an update and a presentation on the CARES, CRESA, and ARPA Act dollars. So those are the American Rescue Plan dollars that are coming into the district. But I also want to just note that I did remove the resolutions and issued a memo as to why I removed the resolution review for this meeting. And just so you are all aware, it is part of Dr. Jallo's plan that this board receives an executive summary for all of the resolutions. And it's my expectation that those are coming along while we're doing the review. And I want to wish our superintendent a happy belated birthday because she was not able to be at that meeting and I didn't want to bug her on it. So I just issued a memo, but hopefully moving forward, we will get the executive summary report with the resolutions, and then they will be back on the finance agenda. You should have still received them. We're just not going to review them because we didn't get the executive summaries on time. And I don't want to have to hold up the resolutions review, but I also want to uphold that that is part of Dr. Jallo's requirements in her report, but also that there's a legitimate reason why that request was put in there for the administration to provide us with those executive summaries. So with that said, I'm going to turn over the mic to Glenn. And Glenn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Good
Thank you.
evening, President White. Good evening, commissioners and our entire community. Today, I'm going to be presenting to you about the replacement of PeopleSoft. As you know, in last Friday's board meeting or board letter, you received the project charter, and joining me today and on screen is John Parsons, who is our project manager and was the author of that project charter. And we'd be happy to answer any questions at the end of our presentation. I'm going to share my screen. I created a presentation that I've already presented to President White, Vice President Elliott, and Commissioner LeBron. And this is for the rest of the board to be able to hear the same message about what we're looking to do. Hello, my name is Glenn Vandewater, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Rochester City School District. And today I'm going to be presenting to you about the replacement of Rochester's ERP and HCM systems, known as PeopleSoft. ERP supports our financials, and it stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. HCM stands for Human Capital Management. In today's presentation, I'm going to talk about the current financial and human capital system. I'm also going to discuss the future financial and human capital system. This will include status highlights, current activities, and next steps. PeopleSoft is our core system, and it was last updated in 2008 and 2009. Oracle has announced plans to discontinue support of this product roughly in the year 2030. PeopleSoft is at the center of our current systems architecture, but it is not a complete system. PeopleSoft is used for financial management and human capital management. The technology is outdated. Technology has changed a lot in the past 12 years, and it's time for a systems upgrade. For example, Oracle was only supporting Internet Explorer, and it took us months to transition from IE to a modern browser, Google Chrome. This workaround had to be done because Microsoft ended support of IE, and without that support, we would face significant security threats. There's also lots of room for productivity and efficiency improvements. Some examples where the current system does not meet our needs. It is manually intensive. We can reduce time and shorten processes like retro-pay. There will also be improved response time for auditors. And we'll also be in an environment where we can rid ourselves of outdated processes like timesheets and leave request. So what have we done so far? We've had multiple demonstrations from Oracle for both our finance and human capital teams. Business cases have been created on initial estimates showing substantial savings. A project charter has been defined and approved with project and scope definition. We've had consultation from external resources like the Council of Great City Schools, school district users, product implementation consultants. In the purchase of Oracle Cloud product through New York State OGS, the district will see a 91% discount from the list price. What's in progress right now? We are looking to identify a systems integrator through a complete RFQ process. What is a systems integrator? An organization that specializes in implementing, planning, coordinating, scheduling, testing, improving system processes, and are a requirement to a successful implementation. We've also started data analysis. Data analysis is needed, and it is one of our risks. Currently, we do not have data governance. We need to define ownership, accountability, and stewardship. Data definitions needs have to be complete between Oracle and our other systems. This would include our data warehouse, SmartFind, PowerSchool, insurance providers, and banking. And we need to ensure validation rules are defined. Data cleansing is a must and must be done prior to the migration to a new system. But what is data cleansing? Data cleansing is a huge factor in an ERP success because it's leveraged in every phase of the operation. An ERP implementation will be exactly as successful as its testing. And the only limitation on testing execution is the data completeness and accuracy. Our ERP implementation will be exactly as successful as its training program. And an effective ERP training requires data completeness and accuracy. An ERP implementation will only be as successful as its synchronization of business at go live. And that synchronization requires data completeness and accuracy. Every success that occurs has complete and accurate data as a prerequisite. Most people underestimate the need for data cleansing. Problems with the ERP implementation due to lack of or inappropriate data cleansing can cause integration failures, system performance can be slowed, user and customer satisfaction can be degraded, the system can become corrupt, and users can make bad decisions. So, right now we're looking to identify all of our internal team members. We're going to be acquiring training subscriptions. We'll be acquiring other skilled resources. We will need to provide backfill for resources internally as needed, and we'll start our project kickoff. But what are our risks? Mitigation and contingency planning is a must and must be ongoing. Address organizational change management and manage the project scope, and do not allow for scope creep. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Glenn. I don't see anybody's hand raised. So no questions. So thank you very much for your presentation and your time, and good luck to you and John with the project.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Up next is our CFO, Carlene Pierce. And Kali, are you going to be slide sharing? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, President White, Chairperson LeBron, Commissioners, Superintendent Myers-Small, and our RCSD family. It's an honor to present to you this evening and a privilege to serve the children of RCSD. As usual, we're going to get started with our cash flow, and Kelly, I believe that's on page 2 or 3. And what we're going to see once the slide is pulled up, you can go to the next one, Kalia, please. Thank you. I tried to highlight these again for you. Okay. So what we're going to see is that we close the month of April with a very strong cash position, again, a liquid cash position of $299 million, as opposed to $174 million a year ago. And the primary reason for our strong positioning is the continued trend of lower than normal accounts payable and payroll due to the hybrid learning. What you're going to see then on the very far right-hand side of the page is that June 2021 is going to be, or is projected at this point in time to be $40 million higher than June 2020. Again, we've had many people inquire about this, and is the structural deficit still a reality? And I have to say yes, because even though we are experiencing these strong liquid cash flow positions, if you will, the structural deficit is masked or camouflaged because, again, we're not operating in normal times. So please just keep that in mind. It is a time to celebrate, but at the same time, we have to realize we are not operating under normal operating conditions. Kalia, if you could please go down, what I'd like to do is get into the revenue section of the spreadsheet. So it's going to be down on page, let's see here. Just keeps, there you go, okay. And so what I'd like to highlight here with regard to revenues is that, and it's going to actually be on the next page, is that our revenue position is up $120 million. And that's because of the fact that our Title IV and our SIG grants have been rolled over. So again, that means that we can bring money forward from one year and roll it into the next, which is, again, very good news. And the other most important fact I'd like to bring to your attention this evening is, I believe, on the very last page, Callie, on my packet, and that's, again, our charter school numbers. I'm taking a look at the enrollment, and we had experimented here with a new layout for this information, very much like your feedback on it, either tonight during the meeting or later you can call me or email me. And again, we're just trying to improve the delivery of our information to you so that it's user-friendly and easier to understand. But what you're going to see on this particular spreadsheet is that the actual student enrollment as of as of May 1st is 6,706, so 6,706 students, which is down from the March 1st level of 6,740 students. And when I inquired as to the decline, the best that anyone could tell me is that they believe that those 34 students have actually left RCSD parameters, so they have left the RCSD district parameters and have moved elsewhere. That's the best that we can determine at this point in time. So as we're approaching the end of the year, you may remember back in November, we had done that large budget amendment, made the adjustment to charter schools. And so at this point in time, I'm happy to report that for the end of the year, we will be very close to breaking even with a negative variance there of less than $5,000. What I'd also like to draw your attention to is in the bottom left-hand corner of this spreadsheet, you're going to see that as the state had indicated, the tuition, per pupil tuition for charter schools did in fact decline from last year to this year. And we have not yet been provided with the tuition number for the coming 21-22 school year, but it has been budgeted at a more conservative number just so that we do not have a shortfall in that budget. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. This question is prompted by your cash flow chart.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct in hearing that the administration would like to pay off the lottery loan since we have so much new revenue coming in, but rules prohibit it? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we want to say that that the administration in total would like to pay that off. I'm not sure if that conversation has actually come up with the entire administration team. It's my understanding that the spin-up loan cannot be paid off early. There's no benefit in doing so. I'm sorry?
Right. That meets with what my expectation and conversations were. What I'd like to suggest to you is that if there are significant fund balance at the end of the year, that a fund be established specifically to draw down and make payments on that loan from year to year. I think it's one of I know that debt service for capital is one of the categories that allows us to use restricted funds, but I'm not sure that other debt service, such as the lottery loan, are treated the same. And I wonder if you might want to look into that with our auditors, with the comptroller's office, with Dr. Jallo, and consider setting the funds aside in a fund balance for that purpose, to be drawn down, essentially by the amount of the repayment requirement each year.
I certainly will look into it. Thank you. Any other questions? I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Carlene. Are you also gonna do the student activity funds and elementary activity accounts report for the third quarter?
I certainly can. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Well, and actually, this is a subject near and dear to my heart, because as I was reviewing the report, and I'm thinking there has to be so many people that are cheering that we will not have any citations in the activity fund audit. But in reality, it's sad to see that in a way too, because it's such a great learning experience for our scholars. And I'm saddened not to see the activity within the funds, because again, it truly teaches the children how to best manage their money and how to apply their revenues to their expenditures and manage budgets. And so as you go through here, there's little to no activity really at all for this time period. And so hopefully next year we'll be in session full time and in person, and we'll have some activity to report. Did anyone have any questions on that?
Nope, I don't see any hands up, Carlene, so thank you.
Thank you for the reminder.
So up next is the state monitor.
Before you go, Commissioner LeBron, if you want to just make a motion to forward it to the business meeting for.
Oh, yes, can I get a motion to forward it to the board business meeting next week?
I'll move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You got that, Clark? Okay, as the clerk, or Clerk Wade, thank you. So up next is Dr. Jallo's the financial plan. So we're just going to do an overview. It was emailed to the board. And so we just want to make sure that we're reviewing it as a board in public, where we're at on certain parts of the fiscal monitoring plan. So Kalia, is the rubric for the colors up on top of this, on the top, so we can remind people what the colors represent again?
I can share that as well.
Okay. So Dr. Jallo, do you want to go? Do you want to present?
Who, you want to present?
No, I don't want to present.
Oh, no, I'm ready to present. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, passing it over to you.
Good evening. Good evening, commissioners and residents of Rochester. I'd like to share with you an update on the finance plan that was submitted back in November. The information that you're looking at represents information from the second quarterly report. 2 quarterly reports were submitted as of May 15th by administration, one for academics, one for finance. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the finance. It was not my intention to go through the entire plan. So what I tried to do is isolate areas where I thought we had a difference of opinion or perception in terms of what was submitted by administration and what I reviewed. If you have other questions about the plan in particular, I'm willing and able to talk about that as well. So blue, when you see blue, blue means it was a recommendation that was initiated and completed. It's over, it's done. Green is a color that we use when that recommendation has been started, and is continuing successfully. I'd make the distinction between green and blue in that blue has an ending and green is continuous. So some of those recommendations continue on and should continue on as a best practice for years to come or months to come. Yellow, that indicates a recommendation that has, maybe it hasn't started or it has started late, or the evidence was not there to support the work that is required vis-a the recommendation. And then red, of course, is a violation. Either it has not been done, it has not been done to a satisfactory level, or the evidence just was not presented. So this was submitted Friday evening, and this is a first look in terms of reviewing the quarterly report. I will continue to look at it. Will admit that this is just the first look. So for policy, there's a concern here. A policy shall be adopted to ensure all management systems are upgraded. You just heard from Glenn about upgrading PeopleSoft, and that is fine. If we were rating as to whether or not that had been started, that is definitely a green and will continue on. But in actuality, this recommendation is about making sure that the board initiates a policy to make sure all your management systems stay upgraded and you never have to repeat the experience of having outdated management systems. So there wasn't evidence that I could find that a policy had been initiated around this particular issue, which is about having a policy specific to making sure your financial management system, your student management system, your special ed student management system remain and stay upgraded by way of a policy. The next one, cease spending on equipment, books, supplies by February 15th. The administration submitted this as a recommendation that should be blue. I think it should be green because this is something that should continue for years to come. They should try to have this. This is not a one and done type of practice. This is a practice that should recur throughout the year and for years to come. So that's the only reason why I asked that it be changed to green. The next one, a protocol shall be established to ensure cabinet members are knowledgeable of contracts, MOAs, and MOUs on a regular basis. This is blue. Administration thought that it should be blue. I disagree in that, number one, I don't think it's one and done. And then secondly, it should be continuous. And admittedly, this is the area that is still in its infancy, that still needs work, still needs attention, still needs consistency throughout the system. And that's why I gave it a yellow. Any questions thus far?
Yes, I see Commissioner Powell's hand up, Dr.
Yes.
Jallo.
It's only a question on the presentation. You're using yellow. Yellow doesn't project very well on the paper.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Just
Well,
to an amber.
okay. So the first one went from blue to yellow, and the third one went from blue to yellow.
Right.
Okay. Actually, we have a few yellows coming up, so I'll make sure to point that out.
Yeah, if you could just make them an amber color, like an orange or something. We all know. Just so
Someone's
that,
doing it. Who's that? Is that you, Kylia? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Kylia, you can also just put an outline around the word yellow, like if you highlight it, just as a FYI.
Okay,
That way it's outlined in black, but still yellow.
Okay. So I'm up to the fourth one, which had sub recommendations to it. I'll let you finish. Okay. So adhere to contract staffing ratios. So, and then number 2 was increase enrollment at RCSD schools by increasing achievement, providing programs that meet the needs and interests of students and families. And the final one was initiate a campaign to compete with the charter schools. The administration said this was green. I have my concerns around that. I didn't see evidence to all of those things. Do I think an earnest attempt was made to adhere to contract staffing ratios? An attempt was made, but when you look at the budget book, you still see the similar ratios that the district has experienced for years. In the budget book, it calls 10-to-1 and 9-to-1, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not exactly adhering to the staffing ratios as documented in the contracts. But number 2 and 3 is more of concern, to be honest. Increasing the enrollment at RCSD schools. The enrollment continues to go down. One of the things we're seeing are children that we just can't find, children that are going to charter schools, children that are going to other communities. In any case, this is an area where there's not a lot of evidence to show how we're turning that phenomenon around. In addition, number 3, initiate a campaign to compete with charter schools. This is another way to perhaps get children back into the district to increase enrollment. As of the time of the writing of this second quarterly report, There's not evidence to suggest that administration has started this in earnest. The next one, so that's why I gave it a yellow versus a green. The next one, reassess the facilities modernization plan with district leadership for operations, finance, teaching and learning to determine fiscal and academic implications of the plan for the district. This one, administration awarded themselves a green. I am offering a yellow. A lot of work has been done in this area, especially in the last couple of weeks. But I dare say it still requires more work for the district to fully understand over the next 4 to 15 years, 15 or more years, how much this will cost you for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, for each phase for each year, so that the district is fully aware what the financial price tag is for this plan. And then also, what is the direction that the district is going in terms of academics and programming, so you'll understand better the link between the vision for academics and what your schools will look like by way of this modernization plan. So I think more clarity should be afforded to the public and to the board as it relates to academics and the financial obligation for many, many years to come, well beyond, I think, the tenure of most of the people here now. And so that's why I gave it a yellow. While acknowledging a lot of work has been done here in this area, but still more needs to be done. All contracts and resolutions should include evaluations and cost analysis. We kind of experienced that a little bit this evening. The administration gave a green. In my opinion, this is an area where it has started, but it's inconsistent, and the execution of this is sporadic. It's not consistent yet. So I don't think it's green. I think it still needs work. It still needs attention. And that's why I afforded that area a level of yellow. So as it relates to the second quarterly report, which represents January, February, March, these are just an outline of the discrepancies or the variances that I saw between what administration thought and what I had in my position as state monitor at this time. As I stated before, I'm still looking at it and still analyzing it, but as of this date, this is where we are. On the next page, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of like a heads up, things that I see coming in the next quarterly report, which will represent April, May, and June, that I want to just alert everybody to, that I will be paying attention to, and that I have some concerns about now. The board goal to improve academic achievement. Where's the evidence? What are we looking at? What are the indicators? How are we going to demonstrate that? Because that is part of the plan. The board goal to improve equity and access for district constituents. Where's the evidence? How are we going to demonstrate that that in fact is happening? Is it happening? It's not just the evidence. Is it in fact happening? And can we prove that that is taking place? Adoption of a policy requiring administration to minimally inform the board of grants awarded to the district. This is very important, especially in light of the funding that will be coming by way of this district, that the board is fully aware of all these grants, the amount of money, what's the scope of work, who's going to be responsible, what are the outcomes. This is an unprecedented time for the district, and not only understanding your title funds, your federal funds, and what is being done with them and how much they are. Now you have millions of extra dollars coming in that you should also be aware of what's going on with these grant fundings. Another area of concern, strategies for reducing expenditures. In the budget that was approved, when you look back 2 years and compare the expenditures to next year, many of your expenditures are still on the rise. They are still on the rise despite a declining enrollment. We may have forgotten it temporarily because we have so much extra money coming in, but the fact of the matter is your expenditures are still rising, and that's an area of focus where administration and the board are going to have to work together to figure out how to do something to reduce that situation. Managed choice policy, we've talked about it many times. But by the next quarter, there will be some more finite information that is expected from administration and from the board in terms of working together around what is the future of that policy, what it might look like, and who it might serve. And the same is true for zone configuration. So I just wanted to make sure I gave a heads up as to areas that you probably see more prominently in the next quarter coming up. And that's all I have for this evening as it relates to the finance plan. If there are any questions, I welcome them.
I don't see any hands, but I just want to acknowledge that we received administration's response to where they were at, and that it did look vastly different from what Dr. Jallo's reporting today. I know because I told Dr. Jallo, oh, we're doing pretty good on this side of things. And I see tonight that we clearly have much work to still do on this side of things.
Wait, let me put it in perspective, because I didn't want to go through the whole plan. It's a major plan. There are many areas on the finance plan that are well done. They're green, they're in the right track, they're blue, they've completed. I'm only isolating tonight the variances, but there are many areas where great progress was made. I don't want to leave that impression because I'm only highlighting the variances. There was a lot of work done and a lot of progress made if you really look through the finance plan. So I don't want to leave that impression at all.
Well, you know, I was like, oh, we're doing good on this side of the house, but thank you for that clarification and bringing that up, because there were lots of parts. And moving forward, I do want both the board and this community to understand that these will be areas that we'll be focusing on, are only the areas where there may be differences of where people think we're at versus where our state monitor believes where we're at with the evidence. And those are going to be the areas that we'll continue to focus on in the finance committee. And I'm assuming that it will be the same in ESA, that we will just be focusing on areas where we may be yellow or potentially red. So if there are no other questions in regards to this, I don't see any hands up.
Mr. LeBron?
Yes.
I can't raise my hand as I'm host, but I did want to emphasize what you just said, and my thoughts on it is that this list is very useful. I appreciate you pointing out that there's a considerable amount of work that was done, and we've moved in the positive direction, because I know Leslie and her team have worked diligently, and I know you know that, and so I appreciate you pointing that out. But notwithstanding that fact, I think the way you have presented it was helpful in terms of time this evening, but also in terms of people, focusing on what needs to be done. And so in that regard, what I would ask our clerk to do and every member to do is look at that list as Dr. Jallo calls them, variances, and find out, and I'll do some coordination of this, find out where your committee could up its game or address some of the variances, and make sure that that gets on your agenda as part of my regular contact with committee members. I will discuss that so that Dr. Jallo sees where we are making an effort to address those areas that need to be addressed. For example, Dr. Jallo, I think you were at a meeting not too long ago, an officers meeting, where I emphasized the importance of going back to our finish line meetings because at the schools, because for 4 or 5 years, we regularly had dialogues about key performance indicators with the school principals, with the superintendent, with the zone chief. And I said, you guys would not know this, but one of the things I said is that I think COVID prevented us from having those regular conversations at the schools, which I think, among other reasons, accounts for some of the progress that we made. As you all know that for years, I have been repeating the old adage, which I did not create myself, but I love it. What gets measured gets done. And for decades, this district was not even measuring graduation rates in a meaningful way, and it showed in those results. And so the finish line report, as all of you know, because I think most of you were around when we began, at least when we were doing them before the pandemic, they look at key performance indicators, graduation rates, progress, ELA scores, math scores, growth scores is what they're called, ELA scores, math scores, gross scores, excused absences, unexcused absences, a whole host of key performance areas that would drive a principal, and many of them were doing it already, to think about where they are and where they need to be. And that's how those finish line reports were crafted. So I hope at the next report, you will see, as I had actually insisted on at our last officers meeting, that there should be no further excuses. Our budget has been put to bed. The pandemic, it is what it is. We need to go back to measuring key performance areas at the ground level where they're happening with our principals and our teachers. So hopefully at that next report, you'll see evidence of that. Thank you, Commissioner LeBron.
Thank you. And I think most likely that would actually be under ESA for those finish line reports as we move forward and yeah. So I just want to say that just as a reminder, the next section of the budget, so our budget is not quite put to bed just quite yet. We do have a joint City Council RCSD hearing on June 9th. Because we are not the host of that meeting, it will be live through Facebook and YouTube, but most likely on the City of Rochester's Facebook page and YouTube. So I just want to put that out there. We are not the ones that live stream that. We are guests in their chamber, if you will, virtually, as we have the joint public hearing on our budget. And then shortly after that, on June 15th, City Council votes to adopt our budget, and they set that date. And they are in the middle of their own budget deliberations as well for the City of Rochester's budget. So lots going on, but we still have 2 more important dates before our budget is 100% finalized and how it looks. And then that brings me to federal dollars and that conversation. So I'm not sure who from administration is going to be presenting. It just says administration on my agenda. So Dr. Myers-Smalls, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then you can direct whoever you want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. And actually, I will be conducting the presentation. I would ask at the end, though, if Dr. Morris and Carlene would come on screen, just should we have any questions from commissioners. So good evening, everyone. We are doing a presentation tonight to just give an update. As Commissioner LeBron stated earlier, she asked for some information and sent a memo outlining that. So tonight, I will begin outlining responses to some of those. She noted in particular a detailed plan for the usage of the dollars to be received. So we can't provide a detailed plan yet because we have not received stakeholder input as of yet, but I will address that. Parameters related to what may or may not be covered under those dollars. And actually just yesterday, we received word around what that looks like. And then dates for public hearings. So we have those dates that we will present tonight as well. So this tonight, again, is a little bit of the budget wrap up, and I will mimic or parrot what Commissioner LeBron just said. On the 9th at 3:30, we have the budget hearing. So I typically give a few words and commissioners will give a few words. We do a little bit of an overview and we have a conversation with City Council. And then 2 hours later at 5:30, it's the Joint Board of Education City Council public hearing. So similar to our hearings, community members can have a certain amount of time to share their thoughts on our budget, and we sit and listen and we take note of that. And then again, as Commissioner LeBron stated, on the 15th at 7:30, we will await hopeful, positive acknowledgement and approval of our budget from City Council. So the next few slides just talk about the federal dollars that Commissioner LeBron referenced. If you would go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to just first give a little bit of an overview of the different funding streams, and we have 3 very specific streams. So the first one is the CARES Act, and just for background, on March 27th, 2020, $30.75 billion in coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security, so CARES Act, was passed and signed into law. And the tenets of this is to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. And so there are two subcategories of the ESSER fund, or the Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief, and the GEAR fund, which is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief. The Rochester City School District allocation for CARES ESSER/GEAR was a little over $23 million. And that was allocated, as we outlined in our budget process, to the general fund under revenue for the 21-22 school year. The next area or funding stream, if you'll go to the next slide, please, is the CRRSA, or the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. On December 27th, 2020, almost $82 billion was signed into law. And again, it's to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. Again, the two areas are the ESSER funds and the GEAR fund. The RCSD allocation for CRRSA is $87.5 million. We need to submit an application, and then the funds will be accounted for in the special aid fund. One of the things that was clearly articulated to us both through the Council for Great City Schools as well as Monroe County is that we don't add these funds to our to the regular budget process, that we need to set aside a special aid fund. So I just wanted to make note for that. And then the third funding stream is the American Rescue Plan. If you go to the next slide, please. And on March 11th, so just a few months ago, President Biden signed into law almost $123 billion, and it's the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. So then there's a third round of the ESSER funds, the Elementary and Secondary School Relief, but there is no funds allocated in the GEAR fund. The Rochester City School District allocation for ARP is $196 million, a little over $196 million. And again, once our application is approved, the funds will be accounted for in the special aid fund. So what can the American Rescue Plan funds be used for? We received, would you please go to the next slide? What can they be used for? So by July 1st, we are required to post on our website a plan of how we will use the funding. And as the memo from the State Education Department outlined, we must use prioritize spending on non-recurring expenses. So I know that we've received a lot of comment about adding staff to address particular areas of concern because our students have been in a remote environment, but staff are a recurring expense. So, but we need to prioritize on the following areas: making sure that we safely return students to in-person instruction, that we really maximize the opportunity for in-person instruction time for our scholars, making sure that we operate schools and we effectively meet the needs of students. We can purchase educational technology. Next slide, please. We can also, can use it to address the impact of the pandemic on students. We need to make sure that we are implementing evidence-based strategies to meet the social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs of scholars, evidence-based summer, after school, and other extended learning and enrichment programs, as well as supporting early childhood education. We have, as a district, 5 areas that are priorities that relate to not only our strategic plan, but the independent monitors' recommendations in the academic and fiscal plans. And so those 5 areas distilled down are culturally responsive and informed practices, high quality learning experiences, diverse programming, expanding the learning for our scholars, and high quality staff. So as I shared at the beginning, public comment is necessary. It certainly is a best practice. And it would be important, and we would be remiss if we did not solicit public comment of how we should expend our funds. So before July 1st, we must seek public comment from a variety of stakeholders. And so we have the following forums that we have determined. For the Board of Education on Tuesday, June 1st, and that will be during governance / the policy meeting, the committee of the whole. We want to hear from students, so that will occur on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021. For parents in the community, we have 2 opportunities. One is coming up, and that's on Wednesday, May 26th, and then again on Thursday, June 10th. Additionally, we will be meeting with, if you go to the next slide, please, staff. So we have a session for principals on Friday, May 28th, and that will occur during network team meetings. And then for all other staff, we will have 2 forums on June 9th. The first one from 2:30 to 3:30, and then the second one from 3:45 to 4:45 p.m. Additionally, we will have a presence on the website, and under Medisol's leadership, we have created a website that contains this information that I presented and certainly much more. But you can also click on this link, which will be on our website, and then it will take you to a form that is pre-populated, and you respond to a few prompts, and you can provide public comment to the Rochester City School District should you not be able to make one of these forums, but also if there's just additional information that you would like to share with us. We are looking forward for this process to be very inclusive, to be very transparent, but we need to, again, focus on the fact that we have to focus on non-recurring expenses that certainly will help our students transition from being predominantly in a remote environment to coming back to attending in person. So with that, Commissioner LeBron, I turn it back over to you and ask if Dr. Morris and Ms. Pierce would just come on screen should you have, you or others have questions.
I see Commissioner Clark has his hand up.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. And it's more of an observation than a question, because when we've been holding our hearings with the community, we keep hearing that we should add more teachers, we should add recurring type expenses to the budget. And my question is, when we set up the community hearing, and I hate putting parameters on anything, because I think all ideas are good ideas, but if we could get the community to focus on non-recurring type expenses that they feel will benefit the district, we could have a much more fruitful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. President White, did you want to say something? Because you came on camera. Okay, I know you can't raise your hand, but I saw you come on camera. I thought you wanted to. So I just want to add a few things if nobody else has. I went to a webinar actually today from the state on federal funding, just to hear directly from NYSED and folks there. And there were a few other people from different districts presenting on these dollars and what it means for districts. Rebecca, I'm going to let you go before I go into, because I have a bunch of notes that I want to share.
Hi, I apologize for any background noise. I'm at soccer with my child. I was actually hoping just to get a little bit more information on the process, that what happens after the forums and how decisions are going to be made. If there's any plans to have workshop sessions with some of the people that are that contribute at the forums, or how the plan to finalize decisions on the money spending is going to occur.
Janelle, would you respond to that?
So we are still finalizing our process for determining the alignment of requests for the funds.
So as we described in the superintendent's presentation, there are 5 main areas that we are exploring further that are aligned, as we've heard, with the strategic plan and with Dr. Jallo's academic and financial plan. And so we asked several constituents, not even including yet the constituent input. We've asked everybody to give us your ideas about how we would allocate the funds. Then the grants department will need to look at the request further, make sure that they are in alignment with the grants that have been placed as priorities. For example, as the superintendent has said, there are some things we can spend the money on and some things we can't. Additionally, once we identify the initiatives that we will be funding, we plan to have a similar task force like the ones that are done for other federal grants, and we want to have a representative on that, as far as having representatives from the community and making sure that we have a very diverse group of constituents that can talk about the progress of the initiatives that have been selected and talk about that alignment with the funding requirements. So there will be an analysis of what's been submitted. There will be that task force that will be created. I'm calling it a task force, but I'm sure the grants department will call it something else, but it's generally going to be a task force so that we can have that representative analysis by a group of representative stakeholders, and we can talk about the progress of the work that's being funded.
Rebecca, did you have anything else?
It's mostly just an encouragement to make it as transparent of a process as possible. This is a tremendous amount of money and it's an incredible opportunity. And so the more involved the stakeholders can be, the better. Because, you know, from the moment we knew we were getting the money, it was very, very loud and lots of ideas. So as much as stakeholders can be part of the workshop level of this, I think I just want to encourage that as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Rebecca's juggling a child at soccer and had notified me earlier, and I was like, just jump on even if you're at the soccer field. So I appreciate that she's trying to juggle both motherhood and serving on the board as our parent rep. So just a couple of things I just want to note that I didn't see in the presentation, but I did learn from the state, and if you can speak to it, Carlene. So the state said that school districts in the state of New York are going to be required to set aside 20% of that total amount, specifically to address learning loss. And then I just want to clarify to the public that we're not getting all of these funds July 1, just all almost $200 million to the district, that it is going to be up to 2024. So we have some time, and that will come in chunks, if you will, a certain amount at a time. But Carlene, if you can address, or Dr. Myers-Smalls, that 20% and how we plan to set that aside and any ideas you may have on that.
Dr. Myers-Smalls, would you like me to take that, or Janelle? Okay.
Between you and Janelle.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're working together. My team is working together with the grants department to make sure that we are following all the appropriate percentages that are determined, have been determined by the state as well as federal government. So as those ideas are coming in, they do need to be reviewed, and then where questions exist, we will have to reach out to the teaching and learning team, for instance, and say, you know, how would this be categorized? Does it meet the criteria within the guidelines? And then we place it accordingly. It's my understanding that we will be working very closely, in our case, with the state, with SED, to ensure that whatever we bring forward, it is absolutely in alignment. There will not be any misunderstandings, and we'll have that clarified before the application will be submitted. Did I miss anything, Janelle?
No, you covered it. Thank you, Carlene.
So then just, again, for my fellow board members and community members, I also learned that the state is going to have 1% for summer enrichment and 1% for after school programming and grants available, but they have not established yet what that process would be like for districts to apply. This would be in addition to the money that we are getting and separate from the total amount. So I learned that today. I wrote lots of notes as best as I could, but I was typing these notes up on my phone, so I do apologize. But one of the other things I did learn about is they, they actually had a list of allowable expenditures and things that district can spend dollars on. And I would like us to get a copy of that list and publish it on the landing page for ARP for rcsdk12.org/ARP, so that the community is fully aware. I know, Dr. Myers-Smalls, you presented right now what you want to focus it on, but I do think in full transparency, we should show the community and educate the community about what the state is also calling allowable. Because one of the things that came up from a different district was asking about, construction and things like that in a school, if it would make it safer. So like, for instance, touchless faucets and things like that for schools that were not equipped with those things. So I would just like us to at least be transparent and say, this is what's allowable from the state, but these are the things we want to focus on because it aligns with our long-term strategic plan and goals. And these are the decisions that this district is making with these dollars versus, I don't want it to look like we're saying we're only allowed to use it on these 4 or 5 areas when the list is pretty lengthy. So I just want to be clear about that. And then the other piece that they definitely did say, and I just want to uplift, and you mentioned it as well, is that allowable expenditures should not be expenditures that districts cannot sustain long-term. And so you did mention that. I just want to highlight that the state also mentioned that. And our plan does have to go to the state as well for them to review, and they do require us to have public input. And then they themselves are going to have, they're doing some public input sessions right now. And so we should also share the state's public input session link so that our community is aware that they can give public input to the state as well.
Medisol has that link, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, if we can add it to that page too, because I know the cutoff is going to be like May 26th, so it's not that
quick
long in opening, and they just sent it out today, but we'll take it. And then finally, I want to just thank you for putting out some sessions for public input. And I know that Dr. Morris mentioned that there's going to be a task force. I did make a request. I did look at the board question log today. It hasn't been answered yet, but I am requesting that any and all task force that are happening in the district, that the names of the people that are serving on those task force is made public so that the community has an understanding of who's kind of working on which areas and helping drive decisions. But then also that there's a better and clearer understanding of how parents can join these task force, because I have had a number of parents reach out requesting information about the task force. I only know about 1 or 2 that I know folks on, but I don't know all the task force that exists right now. And then I also asked where, what progress has been made, since some of them have been meeting since last year. So I'm a little leery about adding another task force to make these type of critical decisions. But again, as long as I see and the community can see who's on these task force, who's driving the decisions, I want to echo what Rebecca said, that there should be a way to have more parent input and, help allow them to, like Commissioner Clark mentioned, share the parameters, right? And then once we have those parameters and those boundaries established, then we can move forward. So I just want to highlight that. The other piece that has come up, and we have had parents come here to talk about, is the summer learning piece. And I know that you have already presented summer school, and it's a dramatically less number, and for various reasons, and the board did support and approve it, so I won't be going back to on that piece. But you mentioned evidence-based summer programming, and I just want to uplift that LEAP. is a summer-based, evidence-based programming that we should be figuring out how to have additional scholar seats, because they service RCSD students and sometimes in RCSD buildings, and they are evidence-based. And so want to figure out how we can, you know, support them and also increase seating capacity for our students with LEAP. And then the other piece, I'm sure that all of the board members receive a letter from one of our community-based organizations around the parameters set by the state and the CDC for the 3 feet rule and the impact that that will have on their enrollment. And CBOs are fundamentally structured financially different than us, but when they do take seats specifically for RCSD students, that 3 feet rule will have an impact on their enrollment, which will have an impact on their revenue. So I'm hoping that we can figure out a way, not just this one CBO, any of our CBOs who have supported us, you know, since the inception of pre-K, and take on the role of taking on pre-K students, if we can support them during the pandemic and these 3 feet rule requirements that will still exist in September. Because certainly we can't say we value community partnership and then not value community partnership when they're struggling and they're impacted by the pandemic and these rules. So those are my 2 cents on those 2 pieces there. I'm going to see if the state has a copy of the webinar that was presented today. And if they do, I'm going to request that it's also posted on the ARP link for RCSD and sent out to all the board members. Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, Carlene?
I just wanted to add to something that what you're saying, and I appreciate the fact that you took the time to attend that webinar today. Please know for the last several weeks now, ever since really that we have received notification of the funding and the amount that we've received, many of us have been attending meetings that have been sponsored by the Council of Great City Schools. It's just been a wealth of knowledge shared. They've sent forward to us the best practices on how to best utilize these funds, practices for monitoring the funds. Similarly, we have been feeling a great deal of support from the Conference of Big 5 Schools with Jennifer Pyle and her team, as well as ASBO, so that's the Association of School Business Officials. So pretty much with anything, any place where anybody's offering a webinar or any literature, et cetera, we've been all over it trying just to glean best practices and how to come forward. We realize the extent of the commitment and the obligation we have to all of you, and as well as most especially to our children and their families. But we are taking this very seriously and taking one step at a time. It's very cautious steps as we're moving ahead. Also, and lastly, it's been shared with us that we can most likely expect that the rules perhaps for RCSD will be a little bit different given the fact we do have a state monitor. And it's not just for RCSD, it's any school district that has a state monitor. So there's more to come on that. We do not yet have full details, but that certainly will be forthcoming.
Thanks for adding that, Carlene. I appreciate that. I meant to say that.
Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, I would imagine that it would, because our state monitor, there is like legislation written around our state monitor and some parameters on what she can do in the district. And one of the is that she is responsible to fiscally monitor the school district, and we do have to get her approval for the budget. So it only makes sense that we would also, this would be a budget amendment as money is coming in, and that she, Dr. Jallo, as our state appointed monitor, would also have to have an eye on it and say, yes, this makes sense, or no, I need you to tweak these things here. And so, Shelley, you want to say something? Because you're going to be up on this. You get Dr. Jallo?
My energy now, because I'm saving it. I'm saving it.
You'll have to give it the okie, the okie dokie for us as we move forward.
I'll be fine.
So the last and final thing I just want to mention, because, and it goes back to Commissioner Clark, some of the comments you made, because I do get that there is a lot of advocacy for us to add long-term expenditures by adding staff. And I just want to mention, because of the foundation aid increase and the promise, that we should figure out a different approach and perhaps even consider a public hearing for those dollars separate from CARE Act dollars. Because I do think that there are some decisions that can be made with the foundation aid that could be a little bit more long-term expenditure related. Not too crazy, because we still, like Dr. Jallo mentioned, we still have to decrease our expenditures, but perhaps figuring out a way to get some public input on those dollars and increases as we move forward in future budget years. So with that, I am done. It's 7:33. I think I may be done hopefully on time, but I don't know if anybody has anything else to add. No. All right. With that, President White, I'm turning the gavel back over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. We are now at that point in our agenda where we consider new business. There is none. And then there is a space in our agenda for executive session stuff. I have not been informed or advised by our superintendent or our clerk that there is any matters for executive session. So that would mean we would be taking our survey. Yes, Dr. Myers.
So I know that typically point of privilege is relegated to commissioners, but if I could just take point of privilege and just to say thank you to the commissioners. A year ago today, you all unanimously appointed me as the superintendent for the Rochester City School District. So I just wanted to say thank you for believing in my ability to lead the district and supporting me through what was certainly a challenging year. But I just want to thank you for your support then and your continued support over this past year. And I just wanted to say thank you for giving me that endorsement last year at around this time.
Well, on behalf of the board, you are very welcome, and we very much appreciate what you have done in that year's period of time. It's a huge plate, as was discussed early on with Dr. Jallo and her those issues that she would want to make sure that we attend to. But there's so much else on your plate that you have attended to and done in a very admirable and conscientious and effective way. So we appreciate your year of service. And I think I can very, very safely say we look forward to many more years of that service with the Board of Education and with the City School District. Commissioner LeBron.
Well, I had a sticky note to also congratulate Dr. Mary Smalls on her first year. And she beat me to it because we let her go first, but it was her birthday on Saturday. So I just wanted to, again, just wish her a happy belated birthday. And Leslie, I'm going to stop by the district and see you at some point this week. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you and for the year. And I know it's been a very challenging year, and I certainly can speak for myself that I'm a challenging commissioner. But wholeheartedly, I'm grateful that you're here and that we do have your leadership and for many more years to come. So happy belated birthday and happy 1-year anniversary with RCSD.
Thank you.
All right, with that positive note, we'll go ahead and take our survey, Madam Clerk. For those of you who aren't aware, we decided many months ago that we would take a survey at the end of every meeting. So we almost like real-time evaluation of where we're at as a board.
Let me just remove your co-hosting, sir. 1 second, please.
The survey was in front of me. I don't know.
Yes, but you wouldn't be able to take it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking that survey right now. Okay, Madam Clerk, tell me when everybody's registered their survey results, and just so that people know, we occasionally gather all these different survey results and see where we're at. Again, it's just a matter of sort of monitoring and managing your own performance as it relates to school board meetings. And I don't know of any other school board that does this. And I must say, what I've observed is that it has, in some ways, allowed us to become more efficient and effective. So thank you to my colleagues for doing that. Madam Clerk, are we all set?
We are.
Superintendent Myers, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Old hand.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and take some hands with respect to who wants to adjourn this meeting. Can I get a motion first?
Motion.
I heard Commissioner Adams and I heard Commissioner LeBron second it. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning and going home or turning off our cameras and being at home with our families indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. And no, I assume there's no nays. So that would mean our meeting has come to a close. On behalf of the Board of Education, thank you for joining us tonight. Please be safe. God bless. Bye-bye. Good night.